all of the vessels were under control very, very quickly. It did not have to happen that way. The Israeli military could have gained control over their ships in non-violent ways. There are ways that ships are brought to a halt all over the world all the time. I mean, there are shots that are fired across the bow. There are ways that other ships can maneuver in front of them, such as what happened to us, that the captain of the other ship says it is too dangerous for us to continue, and it is the captain of the ship that's in charge of the safety of the passengers. The Israeli military did not have to board forcefully those ships in order for them to stop. Within an hour, our boat was already turned, and we were being ordered, our captain was ordered by the commandos on board the ship that were standing next to him, turn to the port of Ashdod and go at 20 knots to Ashdod. So we were the first boat to get to the Israeli port. We were followed by the 3 passenger ships and then by the passengers that were taken off the cargo ships and then brought into the Ashdod harbor. The Israelis had planned well for this. There was a processing center on the docks. When we got off the ship, there was great cheering and yelling by the Israeli military, immigration. Anybody that was on that dock was cheering for the Israeli military forces, having brought under control this flotilla. We were paraded in contravention to international law, which says that you don't take pictures and you don't mock people that you have detained or imprisoned. That's by international law, and yet that all happened to all of us. On one level, some of the pictures that were taken of us as we were the first group of passengers to come off the ships were put on YouTube very, very quickly. And it was the first time that people had seen some of the ones, not the ones from the Marmara, but at least from one of the vessels that had come off. Immediately we were told, you will be deported from the country. You can sign right now and we'll put you on a plane today. You'll be out of here today. There were a few people that signed that and came back to their home countries, to include one American citizen, Ambassador Ed Peck, who has been an ambassador for many years. He's been retired for many years, but it was very important for some of the people to come back immediately to their home countries, including the German parliamentarians, because then they could tell their stories at home. And for Ambassador Peck, a seasoned diplomat who has served all over the world, to be standing in front of U.S. cameras to say, to respond to the commentary, well, you all are a bunch of terrorists. I mean, everybody that was on the flotilla, you were trying to aid the terrorist group Hamas, and here you have a retired U.S. ambassador, 80 years old, saying, do I look like a terrorist? I mean, I am there to support the people of Gaza. Most everyone stayed, though, in Israel. That many of us had made a pact on prison solidarity, that we were all going to stay together. And I would say probably 95%, 98% of the people on the flotilla stayed together in prison. We were processed, searched, body searches, everything searched. Although we didn't have much with us once we got on the ground. I mean, the Israeli military kept everything on the ships. They took all of our computers, cameras, cell phones, took everything immediately upon boarding. They took those from us. We have yet to get that back. I essentially walked off with this outfit. It was a different t-shirt and a passport, and that was it. Everything else the Israelis have. And this is really the least of our worries, quite honestly. I mean, when you've had 9 people murdered, 50 that have been shot up, your personal possessions are not any big deal. But there is, conservatively, $1 million worth of personal equipment that the Israelis have and have so far refused to return. After our processing, we went to a brand new prison in Beersheba. I don't know who they ultimately are going to be putting in there, but we were the first ones, they told us, the first ones to go into that prison. And over the next 18 hours, as each ship would come in and hundreds of people would be processed off that big ship, then slowly, the women started coming into our cell blocks. And then we started hearing the stories of who had been shot, who had been killed, what had happened to the 600 people that were essentially put on the outside decks, many of them forced to kneel a long period of time with their hands tied behind their backs, with helicopters coming over that were I don't know quite how this happened, but all the reports are that there was water that was being thrown on the passengers, and then the helicopters were hovering above them, and so they were wet with salt water, and then the intense sun coming down, beaming on them, with virtually no water being given to them, and virtually no one allowed to go to the restroom, and having to do your bodily functions right there on the deck. It was a terrible, miserable time for those 600 people. And then that you had the 9 dead that were there, and many of the wounded who were not transferred to hospital on board the ship. As we talked through the course of the next 36 hours, as we were in the prison, not one of the women that I talked with said that they all said, we have to do this again, that we have to keep pressing until this siege, this blockade ends. And little did we know what was going on outside and what was happening all over the world, that in places like Hartford, that there were people that were having demonstrations and vigils, that there were angry groups of people all over the world, to include in Tel Aviv, Israel, where my understanding is 10,000 people marched to say to their own government, this is wrong, what you've done.